What's up, everybody? It's DisThunder from the Fwoosh. Today we're going to take a look at what I suspect might be a big-time sleeper hit figure for Mezco 112 Collective, and that is Ultraman. Now, I'll be the first to admit I'm a little bit ill-equipped to review this figure because while he is 112, he's not exactly 112 scale, obviously. That being said, I mean, the guy has been on TV since 1966, and for all intents and purposes, he is Japan's answer to Superman, so he is a cultural icon. So I felt like it was worth doing a review. It also doesn't hurt that I really like the figure. I just as soon not do a disservice to Ultraman and Ultraman fans out there by trying to give you an abridged version of his history, because there's a lot of stuff. I can confirm what's pretty evident from the pictures here, which is this is the original Ultraman from the 1966 series. That means he is the Shin Hayata Ultraman. And while this sounds like a stupid statement to make about a 112 collective figure, I'm going to try to explain it so it doesn't sound so stupid. This looks like an actor wearing a vinyl rubber suit. It really looks like a guy in a costume, like the guy that portrayed Ultraman in the TV show. And I think that's pretty awesome. As a result of that, that's why I think this figure is kind of a sleeper, because at first look or at pre-order, he looked kind of simple, kind of plain. But that's actually the kind of the secret to the success here. He's extremely elegant, and it's very subtle, but very well done. Shin Ultraman comes with a lot of accessories, so we're going to go through them kind of quickly, and then I'll intersperse some pictures here. Let's start with the Specium beam for his right arm. This just pegs into the wrist peg, and he does have the appropriate matching chop hands so that you can get the proper cross arm position and the articulation to boot. He also has an I-beam effect, and while this is maybe not unique to this figure, the way this is accomplished is a bit different. You probably already noticed he has a light-up feature for the eyes and the timer on his chest. And you see here, instead of being a removable neck shaft, it's just inside the head. So you just change out the faceplates like so. That means his light-up feature does not affect his articulation in any way, and it's very inconspicuous. Changing the batteries is also not too bad. How you activate said light feature is a little bit different here as well, and it's a welcome change. Instead of having to remove anything, there is a button on the back of his, back. It's along the spine of his suit. You just got to kind of feel for it, and you feel the push button, and that's all there is to it. Like I said at the beginning, obviously Ultraman can change his size. He grows up to the size of a skyscraper when he's fighting kaiju, so some of his accessories reflect that, like the VTOL jet. This little guy is deceptively nicely done. It looks simple at first glance, but there's a lot of nice paint applications. I like the little Sidewinder missiles on the wingtips. And it's nice as a standalone piece, but you can also use one of the open grip hands to have him hold onto it if you wanted to. Not quite done with Shin Ultraman's attacks. Let's take a look at the Ultra Slash effect and the Ultra Attack Ray. These are done in translucent blue plastic, and they're pretty self-explanatory, but we can show them off a little bit more. The Ultra Slash goes into either grip hand, like so. Nice one to fit on the shelf to take up a whole lot of space. And then the Attack Ray kind of corkscrews up the forearm to your desired length. And I didn't realize it, but it's actually kind of almost like a clear at the top, and then it grows less translucent as you extend out. So that actually is a cooler effect than I thought. But yeah, you can obviously corkscrew that up his arm to a desired length, however far you want him to reach out. Next up is the Brothers Mantle Cape, and I don't know much about this look, but I know I like it. It's a very nice quality cape. It has a kind of a gray satiny interior, and then it has a more shiny, glossy red exterior. There is a posing wire that runs the length of it and along the sides. And he has some damn nice shoulder points too. Again, it's very regal. It's not a look I've seen before. At least not that I remember, but I like it. And since I didn't do this in order at all, there are 5 of these breakaway buildings that kind of help with our scale differential. You can see where they break nice and neatly right in half there. I love the kind of concrete stuffing look on the insides of the halves. And this is definitely one of those things that it may not have a huge use for me in my collection, but I imagine anybody who does kaiju stuff is going to want a bunch of these if they get their hands on them. Let's talk a little articulation and the form and function that go with it here. You can see we have a kind of slight up and down range on the neck, but don't worry, the chest joint will help with that for flight poses. And with the light up feature on, you can see we have no interruption in service there. This is definitely an improvement as far as the articulation goes. Outward shoulder range is good. This is about where the suit starts to stress, so I don't take it a whole lot further than that. But even with that extension, we can bring in the double elbow and you still get a pretty good range there. You can twist at the bicep cut up and down, and as you can see, it's still got good range, even though it is a tight fit. And where this thing really shines for me is just this subtle touch of the blending of the fabric up right on top of the wrist peg into the hands. At any kind of distance, it just looks like a wrinkle in the costume and not an actual break. Sorry, getting distracted. Here's that torso joint I mentioned. He gets a pretty good range up, side to side, and down. The suit flexes with you. It gets tight, but I haven't had any worries about stretch or breaking. And that goes for the legs as well. You've got a great range out and forward. Double knee joint is pretty damn good. And then like on the gloves, you can see here the boots or the shoe part of his costume, the creases in it look like the creases at his knee joint. It looks like a flush piece. Like the wrist joints, you have to get in really close to realize that this isn't all fabric covering the figure. Next, I'm going to try to make an attempt at comparisons here, which don't really make a lot of sense in my collection, but I'll do what I can. My first thought was to grab Earthrise Optimus Prime, and then I realized that was kind of stupid, but I think they look pretty good together. There is that. Then I remembered I might have a more scale-appropriate Optimus, and I grabbed the Kingdom Core Class one to bring in. And then I looked at some reference pictures and realized, nope, that's not even to scale either, but work with me here, guys. I'm trying. I don't do a lot of kaiju stuff. I am a giant sucker for clearance figures, though, so I do have a couple of the Power Rangers kaiju, and I do have the Mezco Kong figure, who, like Ultraman, is kind of in a scale of his own. Lastly, to drive that comparison home just a little further, here he is with the Man of Steel edition Superman, which I do feel like was important to include because Ultraman is surprisingly tall in a 1/12 scale setting. I tried to do some research when I got into this video and looked at some height comparison stuff. There's plenty of information about the Ultra Brothers in terms of their super height. Actually, in that regard, Shin Ultraman is the smallest. I think Ultraman Scott is twice his height in their super modes. But there's surprisingly little information about them in their human sizes. So for a closing thoughts sort of thing, that is a good place to need to ask the question if Ultraman makes sense for somebody who's a 1/12 collective collector who collects in 1/12 scale. What a terrible sentence that was. I should proofread. But I think you get what I'm saying here. And I think for me, the answer is still yes. Even if you were to take away the cultural significance of a character like Ultraman. I was telling one of my buddies, like, I'm not like a diehard David Bowie fan, but if 1/12 Collective had a David Bowie, I would buy him purely based on the historical and cultural significance of the guy. And if that's not a really terrible comparison, he's kind of like the David Bowie of the Sentai Kaiju genre. Oh, that sounds terrible. But on a more surface level, he is a guy in a suit, presumably somewhere between 5 and 6 feet tall, much like Christopher Reeve's Superman, or any of the horror characters we have. And so in that regard, if you have a Hollywood backlot, he makes sense. Or, lastly, hear me out, use your imagination. Ultraman can change his size, right? He can maintain more power levels at a smaller size. So there may yet be a reason for the hero of Nebula M78 to keep in a smaller size for some kind of intergalactic adventure. Ultimately, that's on you, though. My job is done. My job is to show you this is a great-looking figure and that Mezco did a great job on it. And whether you have a strong attachment to Ultraman as a character or not, a damn good figure is a damn good figure. So that means I'll leave the rest up to you, but as far as the nuts and bolts of a 1/12 figure go, I think this is one of the most underrated figures they've done so far, and I hope you can find a spot for them in your collection. And with that, I thank you for watching. I hope it was kind of informative or slightly entertaining, and we will see you in the next one.